Hey Evil Dead fans, I'm doing a quick video on how to make this top handlebar. Now I've said in the past, a long time ago in an old video, I gave some measurements, but that's really kind of not correct, the measurements, because it just depends on how tall your top is and where your side handle comes out. Now I've said in the past, your side handle should come out even with it, or about a ½ inch to 3/4 inches below at the most. Don't have like your side handle come out here and then this bar is like way up here. Best thing to do is start completely over with this piece right here. If it's too tall, it's gonna look like garbage and it's always gonna bug you. Either you're gonna wanna make a new saw or a new handle at some point. So trust me, don't do that. Don't say, screw it. Just start over, make a new top handle piece. Now the metal I use, this is 1 inch wide. It's not steel. I forgot exactly the name of the metal. It's a little softer than steel, because if you use just steel, it's going to be a pain in the ass to bend, especially if you don't have a vise to bend it in. So your best bet is to get a little bit of a softer metal. I forgot the name of it. I can mention it later. But yeah, it's a little bit of a softer metal, but it is still. It's basically steel. It's not going to bend up on you, and it's not going to, warp or anything. It's not a super soft metal. It's definitely not aluminum. Do not use aluminum. Doing your bends sometimes with aluminum, it will break on your bends, and it's way too light, especially if you're using a real chainsaw bar, because that's going to be majority of the weight you're going to have. So yeah, do not use aluminum. Trust me on that. Unless you have if you're making a plastic chainsaw bar, super lightweight one, yeah, you can get away with it. But at the same time, your bends might crack and break on you. I've tried before a long time ago. It doesn't work. Okay, so this top handle piece is actually identical to the one I did for my 100%er, except for one thing is I didn't put a drastic bend over here. My 100%er doesn't have a super drastic bend. It's a little more drastic than this, but I wanted the top handle from season 2 that you see in a few episodes, to where it's got the normal bend up here, and this one has just a little bit more of a bend on the backside versus a drastic bend. Now, if you look at the cover of season 3, the Blu-ray, that has the one where it goes up straight and has a drastic bend in the back. I don't like that, so I didn't go with that one. So this one's basically, this top handle piece is basically as even as possible. It's a season 2 top handle. Now this one I'm doing for the gentleman who's making the Power Glove for me, and this is probably the best top I've ever built. And yeah, I looked at it once I bent it and was like, oh, that's better than mine. But that's okay. It's going to a good place, to a good person too. So first thing you want to do is you want to build your top. I've already covered that in the past, so just refer back to those videos. One thing you want to do is you actually want to pre-drill your top with the hole for your toggle switch and the one for the bolt here. Now your first bend's going to be right here. You can measure out about 1 inch on this piece of metal and then bend it. And bend it drastically, so it's going to be straight up and bent at a drastic angle, kind of right here. And you test it out, just sit it on top of the handle, see if you like the angle bend that you have before you start with this bend. Now if you're satisfied with that bend, then you figure out your height that you want, and then you bend it across. Now when you bend it across, you want to constantly place it back on there on top of the top to make sure it's not like hanging way up this way or way too low. Just bend it to the way you want it. And remember, at a sitting position, you want it level. At a sitting position like this one, you can see it's kind of cocked up just a little bit in the back, but not much. So if it was sitting normal, it's sitting straight. Now sometimes you can make it more drastic than others. It just depends on your top. Okay, once you got it bent across, so you'll have this bend right here, this bend, and then you have a bar coming this way. Then what you want to do is constantly, more than once, sit it on top and then figure out where you want your bend coming down. Now remember, you don't want it too long because then it's going to be straight or bent out and you have to start this bend over. And sometimes you may have to start the whole top or top handle again. So once you find where you need bend, where you want your bend, you bend it down. And a lot of times it's going to hit your top or be over your top. So just set it back on there again and again and again until you got this angle perfectly where you want it. And when you think you're close, this end right here, actually cut it off longer. And that'll actually give you more of a look of where you want to do your final cut right here. And once you know, after you sit it back on there a few times, you know your final cut it down, round out the edges, just the edges, not the end, just the edges. And then sit it back on there again to the side of your hole right here. And then mark out where your hole up here is going to be for the handle that's going to fit in the hole through the top. You drill that out and then put a bolt through it. See if it's where you want it to be. Be careful, do not scratch your top, especially if you're in final paint already. I wouldn't suggest doing final paint until you got all these holes drilled out. So if you got it exactly where you want it, some people can have it just a little bit longer hanging out. I prefer to have it like this. So when I'm all done, it's actually going to be just a little bit up because I'm going to slide a piece of metal underneath here for the attachment piece for the cuff. Oh, I got to do a little sanding there. Yeah, it'll take a second. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So you got all this figured out. After that, what you want to do is you want to drill your holes for your attachment here. So find center and about 1 inch apart, maybe a little more. Depends on how big your handle is. Drill those holes. Now, the next step after that is to make your attachment piece here. Now, I mentioned in the past you want a definite strong gauge metal. You don't want to use aluminum because even when it's bolted down, see I already got it drilled right here, you don't want to pull, grab the handle and pull up, and then from here to here it starts to pull up, and that you'll be pissed the whole time because you get a weak strap. So what I do, I have an old hood here, car hood. Instead of buying metal, I just cut them out. I just cut them out from there. You can buy sheet metal at any hardware store, things like that. You want to definitely not use a Dremel cutting tool because it will take forever. You want to use a die grinder. Ask a parent or guardian or somebody who knows what they're doing to do it for you. Now, since this is 1 inch thick, you want this strap to be about a 1/2 inch wide. And definitely cut it longer than needed. So you got a long strip. Sand it down, make sure it's uniform all the way through. And then with the handle off the body, put that strip across from wherever you need it from the top, straight down, make sure it's even, and then on the back side, go with a marker and mark your 2 holes. Sometimes it's easier to mark one and then drill that one and then put a bolt through it and do the second one right after it. I definitely suggest pilot holing everything, especially using metal, because sometimes if you don't have a good set of drill bits, your bit will want to travel, and that means like if this is the drill bit, and you don't have a good pilot bit, say your X is right here, it'll want to travel over here, and now your hole's way over here. Now you got to make a new strap piece. So that's how you do that, and you definitely want more than you need. Okay, so once you got it, both the bolts into this piece, figure out your bend at the bottom where you want it. It just depends if this is going to hang over, if it's longer, or if it's higher, if you want to go with more of the working chainsaw look. And it kind of looks like crap, so I don't like to do that. So once you find your bend, you bend it in half. You want to take this off when you bend it. You bend it where you need it. I wouldn't say in half, where you need it. Then you kind of slope it. See how it's kind of disfigured right here? I just haven't flattened it back out where it needs to be flattened. So I just want to make this video for you guys first. So once you got that figured out, take it back off. Find your holes over here that you want. Before that, you can actually put your top on your body and figure out your cut line for this. Remember, it's going to be even with the little nub hanging off of the pull string. This end is gonna be even with that pull string nub, the string. You can cut that off. I usually cut it off first, and then figure out your holes, pilot them the same way. You did these holes for this side of the strap. Sometimes you have to bend it back out a little bit, but that's okay. Just don't bend it over and over, because then it weakens the metal and it could just start to tear or break on you. So then you do that, and then you find center on your body, and I haven't drilled this out yet, but you find center on your body, which I put with pencil. Don't use a grease marker, because if you want this in final paint, right after you put these holes in, that grease spot, it's gonna wrinkle up your paint, so don't use a grease marker. Find your center, which my center is right here. Then what I'm gonna do is mark a hole, or mark with my marker here, a spot here, a spot here. I'm gonna pilot hole the whole thing again and attach it to see if I like it. And if I don't like it, it means I ruined my top. So you'd have to start over. And when you cut out your strip here, it's best to cut out your strip. If you're gonna do the version where that attachment to the cuff comes over the top, which I prefer that so I have more room inserting a cuff versus putting it underneath and trying to attach it that way. The reason why I don't do that, other than the cuff insert, is I don't know, there's just no logic to it. And you can put it over the top, or you can put it underneath. And really, this strap is really what's gonna be holding on the back of your top, this connection with the cuff, because you're gonna have two bottom stiff connections connected to the cuff there too. Because if you don't have anything on the back, on the top, connecting to anything else, when you lift it up, the back of your top is gonna flop up, and you're gonna bend up the front of your top, and you're gonna ruin your chainsaw. So the best method for strength is definitely stick a strip, the metal strip underneath here. And I do use the same gauge metal, so I don't have any kind of movement. So that's, in a nutshell, how you make that handle. If you guys have any questions on it, let me know. Once you've done a few of them, it gets easier and easier and easier. I just suggest don't use a thin gauge metal for this. I've seen people use thinner gauge metal and it looks like crap. I've seen people to where they bend this wrong and this handle's way short and it's way up here. Yeah, I check out Etsy and eBay. I've seen some bad ones. They've tried, but I've seen some bad ones where they cut it short here, and this part is actually over here, and they have a strap hanging way down. They should have just started over with the handle, to be honest, because it doesn't look right. So if you get a bend wrong, best step is to start over. If you can't fix it, use a thicker gauge metal here, pilot all your holes, make sure your top is done before you start your top handle piece. And for the height, make sure that it's not way higher than your side handle. 3/4 of an inch at the most, for about right here to here. So from about here to here, that'd be the top of your handle, from here to the top. See, if the top's here and your handle's way up here, or if it's just straight on both sides, all that's wrong. You might as well just get a new handle, start over. And with that being said, I'm gonna get this done. I'm gonna work on this some more. I got the cuff done for it, and I always do. My cuffs are 100% custom made, 100%. None of it is actually, I'd say, bought, but it's bought, you know. Well, parts are bought, but I make mine 100% rather than just getting an attachment. Mine come from scratch. With that being said, you guys have a great day. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and you guys stay groovy.